Hello, I'm Laura and welcome to my channel, Aquamarine18, and especially welcome to folks who are new subscribers to my channel. There have been a few this week, so welcome, great to have you here. You'll know from the title of this video that this video is going to be about traveling with tarot. So what I mean by this is that I would like to tell you about how I take tarot on the road with me when I go on vacation, when I travel for work, and so on. So there's a couple of inspirations that kind of came into the making of this video, which I intend to make a bit of a series or playlist. It'll be sporadic, but I intend to make more videos on this topic. And the inspirations were kind of twofold. One was recently, in my most recent, videos, making the top 5 decks I couldn't live without, or top 5 decks I wouldn't want to live without, which was a topic started by Kelly Bear a number of years ago. And the idea there was kind of, if you're going for a very long period of time, say a year, or you're going to be stranded on a desert island or whatever it is, if you could only have 5 decks, which ones would you choose? And so I started thinking about this and I made my videos. And really, I think whenever we go traveling or go on vacation or, leave our homes for any kind of extended period of time, we're making this kind of decks we couldn't live without, or decks we don't want to live without decisions on a smaller scale, right? When we decide which decks to take with us, if any. And the other inspiration for this was, I think, a number of years ago now, probably as well, before I was on YouTube for sure, I believe a few folks shared videos of their bags, of their kind of tools, spiritual tools that they take with them when they are going on holiday, for example. So I was also thinking about those videos, and if you're a person who made one of those videos, do let me know, and I'll link you below. I can't remember if there was a hashtag about this. I had a little bit of a look. I don't think that there was a hashtag about this. But I know for me, I have a bag that's kind of my tarot on the go, or traveling with tarot bag, and I'll show you it. It's here. I chose this bag. This reminds me of rosemary a lot. It's kind of embroidered here. And so I pack that bag whenever I'm leaving home for a while with tarot and oracle and related tools. But when I travel or I'm going somewhere, I choose what I bring based on the destination, how long I'm going to be there, etc. So I don't have the bag packed all the time with kind of default go-to decks, for example. I pick based on each trip individually. So I thought that I would make this first video anyway, traveling with tarot, and maybe future videos with the same name, as a way to share a little bit about my travels and the places that I get to go or do go, and how I choose and why I choose what I do when it comes to bringing tarot on the road with me and bringing my spiritual practice on the road with me. So again, you'll know from the title, my most recent trip was for my anniversary this past weekend. So we just got back a couple of days ago on Sunday, and I went for 4 days and 3 nights to a cottage in the forest in the area of Bon Echo Park, which I will link. It's a provincial park. I'll link the website for Bon Echo Provincial Park below, which is in Ontario, which is where I live, for folks who don't know. So I wanted to share a little bit about that trip and then show what I brought on my trip and why. So first I'm going to just splice in here a few photos of my vacation and show you where it was that I was staying, and then I'll come back to showing what I put in my Traveling with Tarot bag. So here's some photos from my trip. Okay, so here's a photo of me standing on a place called the Narrows in Bon Echo Provincial Park, which is in Ontario, north of Caladar, Ontario specifically. And I'm in my outdoor adventuring outfit, my sun hat with my GPS. And the Narrows where I'm standing are kind of a point, I guess, in the park. And behind me is the escarpment, the Bon Echo escarpment. And that is 100 meters tall, roughly, so it's like over 300 feet. And it has indigenous pictographs, paintings on it that are ancient. It also has on it a plaque, which you can't see in the picture, which is behind me, or like not a plaque, but like a carving, dedicated to Walt Whitman, which is kind of interesting. So the next photo is also of the escarpment. This is a similar view from the Narrows. We had lunch here a couple of times on the vacation, and so you can see this escarpment in the background. And when we were there, there were people rock climbing and things like that. We didn't go up to the top. We didn't get to. You can pay for a ferry and go across, but we didn't do that. We just admired them from below, and it's a really beautiful place to go. It's one of the most beautiful parks that I've ever been in, really. So I was really happy to get to go see it, and we met someone who is a regular in the park on this point who took some photos for us, which was really kind and much appreciated as well. So while we were in the park, we also took our canoe, and we have a red canoe who we have named Ducky. And here you can see the very front of Ducky. I usually sit in the front when we're canoeing. And the lake is called Mazenau Lake, and there's a upper and lower Mazenau Lake, which are divided by the Narrows. So where the first two photos were taken from, the Narrows, you can kind of see in this picture, but not really. It would be kind of straight up in front of the canoe and over to the left a little bit is where the Narrows is. So we took the canoe out on Mazenau Lake, which is one of the deeper lakes in Ontario, and we paddled around there for an hour or so. And you can see them in this picture as well. Something interesting about the Bonico Escarpment is that some of the oldest trees in the province live like on this rocky area there, so that's neat. And this last picture is actually outside of the park. This is a different lake that we also went to called Scutamata Lake, and it's a very small lake. The perimeter of the lake is like 50 kilometers around or something like that, and there's a bunch of small islands there with campsites. I believe it's Crown land. It's not a park or anything like that. It's just anybody can go there. And something that was unique about this lake is that unlike most of the lakes in this area, there are no cottages or anything on this lake at all. It was very, very quiet. The entire time we were there, we saw, a very few other people canoeing, but other than that, we saw a beaver and a duck and some loons, and that was it. So it was very, very quiet and peaceful and relaxing and beautiful, and it was a wonderful place to visit, and we canoed there for about 3 hours. We canoed all around this lake, and we had a great time doing that. So those are the photos from my vacation. Okay, so those were some photos from my most recent trip, and now I want to get to the tarot part of the video and talk about some of the things that I brought along with me to maintain my spiritual practice and my tarot practice while I was away on vacation in the cottage. So I brought my bag, which I showed. That's the one that I always bring. And I picked this bag for a couple of reasons. One is just that I like the color a lot, and I like these plants on the front a lot. So just aesthetically it works. I really like, for traveling, that this bag has a lot of pockets. So there's a pocket on the front here that zips, that you can see. And then I also really like that the whole bag zips as well. So there's a big pocket with a zipper, and then there's this other pocket in the front. And then on the inside of the bag, which is lined with black, there's another zippered pocket as well. So you can keep things kind of self-contained and separate if you want to. So that's why I picked the bag that I did. There were lots to pick from, but I wanted something that I felt like my things when I'm traveling wouldn't get lost. So the first thing that I brought, and this is one that's going to be consistent through my travels as I get it out here, is my journal. So my current one is just a gray notebook that I got from a chain bookstore in the city where I live, and it says "Never Stop Wandering" on the front with a compass picture, and it has just this little tab, which is good because sometimes I will print out things to keep in there. So I have the prompts for the August Tarot for Growth tag series that's on Instagram. So I kept that there in case I wanted to do that, which I didn't actually do on the vacation because where we went, we did not have any cell phone service and we had no internet access. So I was not Instagramming while I was away, but I've been doing some of those prompts for August, so that was in there. And I guess I won't show the contents of the journal, but it's just regular lined. I like my journals to be lined. My writing's not very neat, so journal always comes along. And then I also have this pen, and this is the designated journal writing pen. There's nothing really particularly special about it. It's refillable, and I like the ink that it doesn't run. I hold my pen in a weird way, so I smudge a lot and get a lot of ink on my hands, and this one isn't too bad for that. So I bring that journal and pen every time. And so next will be the tarot stuff, which folks are probably the most interested in. I decided to bring one tarot and one oracle deck with me. This is a short trip, right? Only 3 nights, so I'm not going to be using a lot more than that. And I'm just reading for myself, so I really don't need any more than that. So I brought a deck that I've been working with in this whole month of August, which is the Radiant Wise Spirit Tarot, which folks will know. It's published by Lo Scarabeo, and it's a Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And some folks will be familiar with this deck as the coloration that is referred to as Dirty Pam, which I think was started by Kelly. Kelly Bear started the Dirty Pam. And the Dirty Pam was actually a different version of this deck, in a different box. But it has these really dramatic kind of background colors in the cards with different gradients that are really interesting. And I really like this deck, and I had bought it when it came out. I had it pre-ordered actually because I missed the original Dirty Pam, and it wasn't available. So I tried to get it on eBay and I couldn't get it, so I had pre-ordered this one because I really liked the coloring. And here's the back of the deck, which I like a lot. And I don't love the cardstock, if I'm honest. It's a bit shiny for me, but I have to say that it does shuffle great, and I've really been enjoying working with it. And these images are very familiar. I'll just show this last one. This is one of my favorite ones in the deck. The background, the sky and the water in this card is amazing. And I showed in my top 5 decks I couldn't live without the Centennial Edition because I love the coloration in that one as well. But this one is something really special too. And so part of the reason I brought this particular deck on this particular trip was just because this was my August deck and I was enjoying working with it, and I didn't want to kind of switch decks partway through the month at random just because I was going away. But the other reason is I was going on a outdoor cabin vacation. And on these kinds of vacations, things can tend to get wet or messed up or dirty. I like taking my cards outside when I can, especially in these beautiful surroundings that I had. So in thinking about packing decks for this trip, I definitely didn't want to bring anything that was out of print, or rare or indie or really expensive, because realistically I just know when I'm toting something around in a backpack or taking it outside on the deck and it's windy, things can happen. I try to take care of my decks, and I've only ever destroyed actually one deck, and it was totally my fault, and I was not on any kind of trip. I left it on a windowsill and it got wet when it rained. Haven't made that mistake since. But I wanted to bring this one because I know if something happened, which it didn't, But if something did, then I know that I would be able to replace it, and I would be able to replace it not at an exorbitant cost, which is important. The other thing that I really like about this deck is that for traveling is the box that it comes in. So this box is really sturdy, nice and hard. The lid stays on pretty well. You can kind of toss it around in the bottom of a bag, and it's not going to get opened by accident or anything like that. I haven't really looked at the guidebook for this deck, but it fits in the box, so it's easy to carry around, which is really nice. And it's the multi-language guidebooks that Los Scarabeo does. So I could bring everything along, very, very self-contained, and continue to work with this deck on my vacation and be confident that it wouldn't be damaged or anything like that. So that was my tarot deck that I brought along. And the oracle deck that I brought along, I actually bought kind of specifically for this trip. It was one that I kind of had my eye on but had never bought, and I don't have a huge oracle deck collection, but it was one that I'd been interested in. And then this trip came up and we planned it, and I thought this would be how perfect, kind of thematic, right? And that was the Whispering Woods Oracle, and it's by Jessica Lee. It's published by US Game Systems, and this deck is really tiny, and something that makes it unique compared to any other deck, oracle deck that I own, is that it's totally text-based. So all of the backs have this woodland scene on it here. And all of the fronts are actually the same. They're of a border, and then there's a message associated with it. So you don't really read the images on a deck like this. There we go. Because it's the same image each time. It's just a different phrase with a different title. But all the borders are the same, all the pictures are the same. So it's kind of like picking a mantra or a inspirational word for the day. And so that, I like that. And the deck was also very affordable. Also like that. And it's a mini deck, so compared to this Radiant Wise Spirit, this deck is only so small. And so I thought this deck was perfect for a forest vacation. We were in the middle of nowhere, in a cabin on a dirt road, in the woods. And I thought a woods oracle would be perfect. And again, this one has, besides being a really good theme for the trip, I thought has a lot of features similar to the Radiant Wise Spirit that made it a good choice for this particular trip. The box that it comes in is a hard box, so it's going to be safe, being jostled around in the car, packed with all of our other stuff. The box is magnetic, so it stays shut pretty well. It has this message on the inside for how to use the cards. Whenever you need inspiration and guidance, sit in a peaceful spot and draw a card from the deck. Allow the quiet whisperings of the woodland realm to inspire and steer you towards the right path. And so the whisperings of the woodlands was kind of something that I was keen to hear on this trip, going into the forest for 4 days. So this deck was perfect to bring along. Plus, of course, as a small deck, it doesn't take up a lot of space. So, and I think it looks quite nice with the Radiant Wise Spirit. So that's why I chose those two to bring on my trip. And I worked with both of them on all of the days that I was gone. I picked cards in the morning every day, one tarot and one oracle, and I would talk about them with my partner and journal a little bit and sit outside with them. And both the decks were really, really nice to work with for that. And I didn't actually bring too much else on this trip. Sometimes in the bag, we'll see in future videos, and some longer trips I might bring a tarot-related book to read, for example, or a pendulum occasionally, or maybe the dice oracle or different things like that. But I wasn't gone that long, so I didn't really bring that many things. But I do have a few more, which are the crystals and the cloth, which are the last few things I brought. So something I always bring along with me, and again, I kind of choose based on where I'm going and what I'm doing, is a cloth to lay down for while I'm reading. So I brought this cloth. This is a paisley, and I bought this paisley at the fabric store, a big piece of it, and I cut two. So I cut this small one just to be kind of travel sized. So if I fold it, it's quite small. It's plenty big enough to do a larger reading on, but it's not too big. And I also cut a big piece of this for my reading table in my room, which I use as well. And then I just hemmed them, did them like that. So I brought a cloth along, and that's good for taking cards outside for sure, to have something to put them on. And also inside, I could set up in the cabin we were in. I set up kind of in a little corner on top of an old trunk that had a big blanket folded on top of it, and I put my cloth on top of that. So that just like worked perfectly. And then I also brought a baggie of crystals, which always comes along as well. And some of these are going to be regulars in the Traveling with Tarot videos because they are ones that generally go on trips with me, and others aren't. So two that I generally bring along with me always, that are crystals that I always like to have with me, is one clear quartz. So this is just a clear quartz point, a small one. And one small selenite. And selenite is one of my favorite crystals. I have a lot of selenite, like 5 or 6 different ones. A wand, I have a couple of towers. But this is a good just little cleansing, to cleanse a space, small, compact. So that one always comes along. And then I'll bring a few extras. So for a kind of cabin or camping trip, wanting to really unplug for a while and kind of disconnect from the electronics and disconnect from, media and communication and things like that, and have a really quiet couple of days, which we did. I brought with me a moonstone and sunstone that I like both of these stones individually, but together they just feel kind of like getting into better basis with the kind of natural rhythms of where we were. So on vacation, out in the forest, the cabin, we're not setting alarm clocks, we're waking up with the sun, we're observing of the moon, and so these crystals felt like good ones to bring along, so I brought those. And the final one, which is the one that I like to have for grounding and also for particular kind of meditation outside, nature connection kind of meditation, is this Septarian round one. And I really like to hold this one. It has a really good weight to it. I'd never seen Septarian before or even heard of Septarian before until I saw this at the shop in town where I found it. And I've read a bit about Septarian online since then. And the idea of kind of nature connection and things like that are not necessarily kind of the traditional association of Septarian that seems to be, that I'm finding online and in books on crystals and things like that. There's a lot more about focus and things like this. But for whatever reason, this stone feels kind of foresty to me. And mostly when I'm picking crystals, to bring with me or to do particular things with, it's just based on how they feel to me anyway. So I chose this beautiful Septarian to come on my forest vacation. So that was all of my entire Traveling with Tarot bag for my 4 days in the cabin in the forest vacation. 2 decks, 1 tarot, 1 oracle, journal, handful of crystals, and a reading cloth. And that was it, all packed into my little bag. So that's the first I guess, installment, we'll say, of what will inevitably be a very sporadic series, because it's not like I travel all that much. But that's Traveling with Tarot number 1, and hopefully I'll share another later on. So if you have anything that you like to bring when you go on the road with your tarot practice or your spiritual practice, please feel free to share in the comments, or if you want to make a Traveling with Tarot video, please feel free and let me know if you do. I would love to see it. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye.